share the screen. Should be able to do that. Can you all guys see that all right? Yeah. Okie dokie, right. If you just want to put yourself on mute yeah, so welcome to another edition of the Influencer Marketing Roundtable. For those of you that are new to the session, who am I? Well, I'm an influencer marketing specialist. I host my own global podcast. In fact, we've just shared another one yesterday, which is a really, really good one about pet influencers. So you should definitely, if you haven't already, have a listen to that. It's really fascinating. I'm also the author of Influencer Marketing Strategy, which you can get from all leading bookstores and Amazon. I'm a host on many influencer marketing panels, or indeed a guest. Part-time, I work with a global influencer agency called Audience to Media, and we have about 107 million influencers on our platform. I'm also quite involved in the association sector, having set up the UK Association for Influencer Marketing under the Branded Content Marketing Association. I have my own membership community called Membership World, and I'm a co-founder of the Meetings and Event Support Association. And then I still have time, fun enough, to write for the Evening Standard. There you go. Yes, thank you. I also run my own influencer marketing program, which is to help individuals and companies become more influential. I'm not going to go through all the different steps of that, but if anybody's interested in it, in creating their own influencer program, then love to have a chat with you after this. You've got my email address there. And today, really, I want to just bounce around some ideas on Twitter more than anything else, because like all of the social media platforms, what we've got to try and do is find our own voice. I always say what's important is how you show up on different platforms. Now, I use probably Twitter the least. Yet actually, from a media perspective, it is one of the, if you want to get in front of mainstream media or be involved in some really topical discussions, Twitter is definitely the place for that to happen. There are obviously only limited amount of character spaces that you've got there, but there are some really cool things that you can do on Twitter. So what I want to talk about today is just a few ways in which you can sort of leverage your influence. There have been some really famous tweets that have galvanized huge amounts of audiences, not least of all, we found people like President Obama and even Trump really leveraged to engage audiences. And the thing about Twitter is it can be quite provocative. So you can get a huge amount of engagement on Twitter, but not all of it can be positive. I often say Piers Morgan is a good example of somebody that is got millions of followers on Twitter, but some people just follow it because they're intrigued by him. They probably disagree with him. He gets as much trolling as he does positive comment. But here's just some examples of some very famous tweets. So President Obama getting 22,000 replies for that tweet. You may have seen the very famous one that Ellen DeGeneres did with the individuals at Oscar night, and that got 204,000 replies. And then Harry Styles' tweet, always in my heart, got 2 million retweets. I mean, can you imagine 2 million retweets? I think one of the things I always say to people is be aware of posting visual content as much as possible. Like with all social media, our attention spans are getting limited. In fact, we're actually in the attention economy now more than ever, aren't we? So what we've got to think about is what's going to grab our attention. So where you still can use photos and videos with captions, they make a big difference. Sorry, just to remind everybody to be on mute. just in case we get. Yeah, as an example, I got there from Naked Wines, which is again a very good advertising post there, but I thought really well put together. Like as I say with all influencer marketing, if you want to grow your influence, make sure that you are following some of your competitors or the types of clients that you want to work with. And if you've got really interesting if you've got really interesting quotes or comments, see if you can tag them, because that's a great way of getting retweets or getting on their, on their, if you will. You can also run a followers campaign as well. This can be really, really effective. That's something that you might like to consider. You should also check your analytics as well. Find out what's really working. If you remember, one of the things I've often talked about is create yourself an Excel spreadsheet and find 10 of your competitors or 10 of your exemplars, or a mixture of both, and yourself, and have a look at what they're doing on Twitter. What type of content are they creating? But more importantly, what type of reaction are they getting? Who's retweeting on what? I mean, this was funny enough, quite an interesting tweet I shared about when there was all of the thing about Novak Djokovic, which I thought was really, really funny. And I was talking about timing being everything. It was a great piece of content. It might be that you see something out there and you can find a way that you can jump on a trend. In fact, I'm something that we've got coming up actually on the 1st of September. I'm a media partner to the Technology for Marketing show. And one of the things I have suggested to the organizers is a Twitter bot. And what we're going to do is I've suggested to the organizers that they get all of the exhibitors and all of the team at Closer Still Media, the people that are organizing it, and as many of the speakers to focus a promotional tweet of some sort or commentary on the 1st of September at a certain time, because the power of getting everybody to do something at a time be really, really engaging and certainly grow your influence. So yeah, this is my idea. I hope this works, but if it does, we really want to get the exhibition and show trending on the 1st of September. And I think just following on from that, it's really important that you have a look and keep an eye on what I think is important to mention when it comes to trends, though, is that, and there's something that really annoys me, is when I see lots of really interesting conversation about a subject and then somebody's just jumped in with something where they're trying to sell something on the back of, I don't know, a cryptocurrency deal or something. Now, I think that works against the main run of the conversation. So what you don't want to be doing is seem to be selling something when there's a wider conversation, in the same way that you wouldn't go into a conference for the first time and send your business card right in front of somebody. You'd want to start creating a conversation with added value, and that's the thing that you need to be thinking about doing, is how can you enter this conversation that people are talking about. Definitely create yourself a tweet plan. Here are some ideas here that you might like to consider. So it might well be on every Monday, or actually first Monday you do an FAQs, second Monday of the month motivational Monday, the third Monday a Twitter poll, and then fourth positive brand news. Then can you see the way this is all spread out? All this does, it just gives you a prompt. One thing I would always do as well is when you're doing some tweets, again, keep the time consistent, because social media influence is all about being consistent. If you've got some form of graphic that you can work within, even better. but keep it consistent, and try and tag a customer in or a prospect into each of your tweets. What people don't want to see though is if you've got multiple tags of customers in, the likelihood of that customer retweeting when they've got other competitors in that tweet is very unlikely. Make them feel a bit special. So maybe you've made a point, you've made a statement about something, and then you might say, well, what do you think? Yeah, you're almost prompting a question. There's all sorts of things that you can do with polls. Make them, let's, for example, during the Oscar event or something, or during, there's a way where you can potentially run a poll alongside the lead up to the Oscars, during it. So you're capturing about a bit of interesting traffic, interesting noise, but you'll make it engaging and interesting. It's a really good way to build communities, tap into trends by, as I say, making a quiz, or indeed just getting feedback on your content. Remember, what I would say about content is to be educational, entertaining, or inspirational, or if potentially all three of all the better. And just to explore that even further, when it comes to video, we all know that how-to videos are very successful. So you could explore putting some of those in. Definitely Q&As, allowing people to ask questions, or what you might like to say, here's a question I was asked only recently, and share that on your profile. So, for example, in the Facebook group, if we were asking, people were starting to ask us questions, what I could say is, following a question about what to charge for an influencer, here are some of the answers in relation to that. It just says that you're not just pumping out stuff, you're relating to what the audience are asking. Obviously, stuff like lives make a big difference. As we all know, the algorithms love that. Motion videos can be very successful. Guides, all this sort of stuff. You can read this as quickly as I can talk about it. But there's some really good ways in which you can embrace. Sometimes we think about these things for Instagram, but there's no reason why they can't work just as well. Remember, if you're creating a video, repurpose it on Twitter as well. Here's a few others that I've put some theming behind them, so that it's Sunday Fun Day, Monday Motivation, Transformational Testimonial Tuesday. What I'm trying to do here is give you sort of a branding idea that you might like to add, and you could even theme it, so that what we're trying to do is to try and make your audience aware of what's coming in Monday Motivation. Yeah, the more consistent you are with this, the better. Don't forget to, of course, as we often say with all your social media, this is not just necessarily Twitter, but think about where you can promote them, whether they be on your emails or website footers, your certainly presentation. In fact, on that note, when I'm at an event, I'll often have my Twitter handle on every one of the slide decks, because if somebody is saying something, what I want them to do is to comment on that moment during that slide presentation, rather than just waiting for the end of the slide. Business cards, you can create and have a URL. I happen to use my Instagram on that, but there's no reason why you couldn't also have your QR code for your Twitter, if that's a popular medium for you, or at least have the logo there. If you're out and about and you're servicing clients on a local level, car and van livery is also quite good, as are window stickers and branded merchandise. In fact, on branded merchandise, I did something yesterday in the Facebook group. I don't know if any of you use promotion products, but it's a really good way to promote your social media. Something like a mug, for example, we've got a mug in front of us, haven't we, pretty much every day, and think how powerful that is, have that message. And it's not just about having a logo on the side of the mug. You can actually have your logo on the inner rim of the mug, or indeed on the inside base of the mug as well. So when somebody's finished their coffee, they've got your Twitter handle looking at them. And of course, yes, on a newsletter link as well. If you're sending out regular newsletters, that's another good way to do it. A few other little extra tips as well. Include some real keywords to your business in your Twitter bio. That's really important. And search for people talking about your niche well. And yeah, what I would say is always ask people to follow you in your communication. What I'm saying there is make sure that when you are not just when you're post out, ask for a call to action. Ask people to follow you, not just like, subscribe to you and follow you. Okay, so those are a few little tips and tricks there for you to think about and discuss. I'm just going to come off. So hopefully that was helpful, stimulated some ideas and thoughts. Thoughts really from you, Paul. You're on Twitter. How do you use Twitter at the moment?
Well, I've got a social media manager who kind of takes care of all the posts. So I'm not actually very active on it myself at all, if I'm honest. It's like all the channels wanting to be optimally doing stuff on all the channels, and I'm a bit behind, to be honest with you. So I've just looked whilst we've been talking. I've been following people from the chat here, and catching up. But I don't actually use Twitter myself very often at all.
No,
I'm ashamed to say.
That's all right. Who does actually in the room? James, do you use Twitter much?
I put up a couple of posts every day, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I am going to start throwing up a few more videos up on it. I used it to very good effect. Good couple of years ago, I was in dispute with a company, and I started posting up letters up on it, bloody blank. Cut long story short, I got what I wanted out of it. I got to court over it. They had to take me to court to negotiate with me to remove some of the stuff that I put up on Twitter.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I always say you don't want to upset an influencer on Twitter.
You want to upset,
because
if you want,
yeah.
Now, to be fair, Gordon, I would have, I'm just on my profile there now. I have over 2,000 followers on it. I'm probably not utilising as much as I should, but I will change. I'll be honest with you, in my marketing niche, I've never ever had much success using Twitter.
No.
To me, now this is just myself, I find it more of sort of people breaking news. It's more maybe for news stories and bits and bobs.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I write for the Evening Standard, and one of the things that I noticed there is that there's an article that I've just posted a couple of weeks ago on 10 finfluencers to follow, fintech influencers, and we've had the biggest amount of traction on Twitter, because the people that are in the fintech space are much more aligned to Twitter.
Yeah, you're right.
As they are. And what was really interesting there, James, is some of the people that I highlighted have got hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, which actually
maybe, you know, I'll be honest, I probably just backed away from it a little bit. But on the back of actually talking about it today, I probably will start banging up a couple of videos on it from next week onwards, and see sort of what contraction I'm getting back from it. But again, you know, I've 2,000 followers there. I have a fairly big sort of network to start throwing a few bits and pieces. Now I copy a couple of from a newspaper in Ireland. I copy a couple of news stories on it every morning. I copy some of my LinkedIn posts onto it, but then that's only just, I'm not getting traction from that. People have to click onto it to go and look, so you're taking them away from Twitter, and Twitter don't like that. So I'm actually going to stop doing that, and I'm just going to start posting up a couple of videos with a bit of text on it and see where it goes. Like,
see where it goes. It'd be interesting to see how you get on with that. I mean, look,
I'll start doing it, and we might have a chat about it at one of our other things. Because I'm using a scheduling tool, it's sort of silly of me not to be putting stuff up on Twitter when I'm putting it up on other channels as well.
Yeah, well, it is, James, because in a way, it's just, there could be people. And one of the things that I would say to you, I'm going to come to you in a second, Ali. One of the things that I'm going to say to you is that if you want to get into the media's first channel of all is always Twitter.
Yeah.
So what if you've got a really interesting news story and you think actually a newspaper or why not tag one of them in there?
That's one of the reasons why I haven't really been putting stuff. But what I use social for is sort of self-promotion, if you know what I'm getting at, promoting your business and that. But I am going to I'll give it a push again, like, that way. But as I said before, my three main ones are Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then you have Google My Business in the background as well. But again, if I'm posting up on other channels and I can copy it onto Twitter, it's free advertising when you think of it, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're using the others.
What we need to do though is remember that Twitter is not necessarily just an advertising platform, but one led by conversation. So, for example, in April's case, if there was anything relating to dating, then you'd want to see April having an opinion about that. If somebody
exactly. Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, who is this lady? Who is this lady talking about that? Oh, right. Okay. So she's a dating expert,
The content I'm putting up on the likes of Facebook and Instagram is getting plenty of traction and bits and all it will take is one person to ask about it on Twitter, and before you know it, you're getting people to respond. So it's silly of me not to be using it, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Ali, nice to see you here. I hope, did you catch all of it I was talking about, or I think you came in a little bit midway?
I got probably half of it, but I'm just going to sort of dive in on the Twitter conversations. Interesting for me. So in 2012, when I first started what was called Sports Hub, then as a free service to help athletes, it was just Twitter based. So in 2012, it was only on Twitter, for almost the exact reasons that you're laying out now. I think then Twitter went a bit out of fashion and people started to move heavily towards Instagram, etc. But I'd always kept that Twitter interest ticking over. And now having moved into the paid space, doing New Venture Sporty, which is a social media consultancy, I found that in the sports world and the news world, and like you said, in the voice space world, Twitter is right up there. I've done a lot of stuff on Clubhouse, and obviously Twitter Spaces has essentially copied that, and I think is a big move going forward for them.
And Ali, I've never used Twitter Space. Have you got any insights on? I mean, I have been involved with Clubhouse, although not raw recently, but not involved in Twitter Space. What's that like?
So interestingly, Twitter Spaces at the minute, I've only been a listener. It's still a little bit clunky. It doesn't work as well as Clubhouse does. But as people know, if they've seen the stats, that Clubhouse's surge through code is now tanking, so their use figures are lower. But I still listen to Clubhouse every day as almost a radio station. There's a business club called the Winners Club that I was listening to this morning. And I have a weekly sports show that I push out through Clubhouse. But in our kind of monthly meetings that we have about how we're going to work those,
every week for the last 3 weeks, we've all been saying, when's the time going to come to push it out on Twitter Space, either instead or multi-purpose it. So maybe we put it out live on LinkedIn, on Clubhouse, and Twitter Spaces in time, and have 3 phones in. Quite a few discussions about how we would do that going forward.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Who, John, are you on Twitter?
No, I've not used. I think I used it once or twice, probably a decade ago. But other than that, no. I was just interested. I was just looking at the top 10 social media platforms based on monthly active users, and actually to come in at 10th.
10th, yeah.
217 million.
I tell you what, Scott, I got an
active
email
users.
there this morning. Now I haven't studied it, but it's a girl in America that I've actually done. I looked at some of her webinars and attended some of her stuff. But she's saying really that, you know, TikTok is, people are ignoring it. Like the figures of the people that are actually using TikTok now, not just people that are using it. I think we're all a little bit saying it's just for videos for kids, for teenagers and all that. There's a lot of businesses using TikTok now for their main. That's another thing I'm going to have to look at now as well, is maybe venturing out into TikTok. But
Yeah.
TikTok and Instagram.
I think the only thing I would say, James, is that when it comes to oh, we've lost Ali. Is he gone? Oh, there he is. No, he's down there. You know what it's like when you move around the screen. it disrupts my mental thinking. Yeah, what I think is important is realizing where your target audience are. You know, where your target audience are.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah,
you know, so
I personally myself can't see, like, for what I'm trying to do. I would side with Instagram for the time being rather than TikTok for what I'm trying to do. But if some clients came to me, and you would have to look into their brand, look into their business, see what they do. But for that age group, from maybe, you know, you're from your 15s to your 30s, you know, if you're trying to get into that little niche of a product or a service, to that little thing, like TikTok could be the way to go. Like.
Yeah, but I don't think we should ignore. Twitter at all, which is the reason why I wanted to spend some time on it today. And I think, you know, even if it's just connecting to communities that are focused in our area. So, John, when it comes to hospitality, there will be some discussions going on around hospitality.
Oh, you're right, Gordon.
And if it means that there's a load of people that are diving into a key topic, and it might be like an awareness day, it might be a big topical news issue, and John, you want to have an opinion, you want to be where the conversation is going, so that people then start to discover you through the bigger, wider conversation. And that's the way you have to look at Twitter, is if there's a whole conversation about your subject area, you want to be right center point within it. And particularly if you're in a position to quote stats or to you know, make some reference that slightly ties it back to your own business, you know, that could be a really smart way to build your influence.
I think it's like any of the platforms, isn't it? You have to use the right content for the platform. There's no point in trying to do something like TikTok in Twitter and vice versa.
Yeah, fair point, actually.
No. Yeah. And equally, if you want to get in front of a journalist, the amount of people that just said it is the one, but it's also the way in which you do it. Because, you know, I mean, I'm a sort of, you know, mini journalist, I guess, for a newspaper, and I know that what the paper wants is traffic. They want relevant traffic to their site, and what they want to do is find out what's trending at the moment and that's often driven by Google Trends and Twitter. So what they want to do is try to make sure that there are stories around those subjects. Sorry, guys, for that.
You're back.
Sorry, I said it was a bit unstable at times. I thought I could last.
You're not doing too bad, Gordon.
I thought I could last till 9:30. Yeah. Am I unfrozen now?
No,
Yeah.
fine, Gordon. Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Who else wants to contribute? Thana, are you on Twitter?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. Yes, I mean, we do have a Twitter account for the brand, but haven't used it a lot. I mean, if you look at the account, I mean, we haven't done a tweet in a long time. But as you just said, I have been kind of PR activity to create some awareness for our campaign. And I think pretty much everybody suggests it on Twitter that you can follow and might be interested in your story.
Yeah, and
So-
also, Thana, using the right hashtags that are relevant to your brand. You could create your own branded hashtag, or just follow relevant hashtags as well for your own business. So whether or not they be, you know, Sri Lanka or different types of spicy food. Did I freeze?
Yeah,
Did I
so
freeze again?
we've got
No, you. What was brand, Thana? Sorry, I missed it because I was late joining.
it's so our Twitter is a brand of Sri Lankan food.
Ah, okay. Based where? Based in the UK?
So given what's going on in Sri Lanka, we are working on a campaign to get people to eat more. Have Sri Lankan food and drink Ceylon tea.
Yeah.